Bienvenidos a Fonograma, acá les habla Goura, estoy en Goura Music, en mi hogar, que funciona como una guitarrería. Esta es una entrevista muy especial porque es la primera que voy a hacer en inglés, ya que el invitado es de Estados Unidos. Yo no sé hablar muy bien inglés, estoy estudiando, así que ténganme paciencia. Pero bueno, no quería perder la oportunidad de entrevistarlo. Así que, bueno, acá estoy con Jim Campilongo. Welcome to Fonograma.
Oh, ¿cómo está?
I appreciated you coming. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. And, no hablo español. Yo siento, poco on Duolingo every day. And here we are. We have to speak English, and I really appreciate it. And I appreciate your listeners and your staff dealing with it. Thank you, guys. And your dog. Your dog even speaks
Almendra.
Spanish. Yeah. So.
Thank you. How started your love for music?
Wow. Well, I always, one of my earliest memories is hearing Puff the Magic Dragon by Peter, Paul, and Mary and crying. And I must have been 3 or 4. And there was a piano at my grandmother's house, and I used to play it, the white keys with the pedal down all the way. I liked reverb even then. And eventually started buying records when I was around 12. Really seriously, I had won this contest where you call a radio station, and if you're the third listener, and I won the top 10 singles of July 1968. I've never told this story, and it was The Ballad of John and Yoko, Amen and Color Him Father, A and B side by the Winstons, My Cherie Omar by Stevie Wonder, Fortunate Son by Creedence Clearwater, In the Year 2525 by Jagger and Evans, and a few more. And it was at the time, because this is pre-internet, it's 1968, and I'm 10 at that point because I was born in 1958. I listened to those records and I honed in on The Ballad of John and Yoko. And I don't know if you guys were like this when you were like 10. I listened to it continuously all day, every day, until my parents, they went crazy. They said, you can't listen to that anymore. And my mother felt it was a little blasphemous. Christ, it ain't easy. And, they're Italian Catholics. And, but that was a real big thing for me. And then I started buying records, and I knew I liked long improv, but I didn't know what it was. And so I would go buy records based on the length of the song. Like if it was a whole side of a record, I'd be like, I'll get this one. And I was really lucky. I got Larry Coryell, Barefoot Boy. I got John McLaughlin, Devotion. Yeah. I got John Coltrane, Live in Japan. I got, what was it? Rare Earth, Live in Concert. And I didn't like that. But I still listened to it for 2 months, because, I had like a paper out, and get one record, you'd have to listen to it. And eventually I found Cream. And excuse me, I have a nicotine lozenge.
Okay.
I found Cream, and I found Live Cream Volume 1 with NSU. It's before I found Wheels of Fire. And I always liked the Beatles, but everything else, if the song was 4 minutes long, I didn't want to hear it. So I got Live Cream Volume 1, and that's when I decided I really wanted to play guitar. So the guy across the street from me played guitar, and I remember I used to go over to the garage, and sorry to talk so long. You ask me a question, I'll talk 5 minutes, 10 minutes. And he was playing Let It Be by the Beatles, and I remember hearing him, and I thought, wow, where's the organ and the drums and everything else? But I still thought, wow, he's playing Let It Be. And it was like G, G, D, D, but I thought he was fantastic. And he lived across the street from me. And I used to go and sit in his garage and just listen to him, and he was like a god to me, like it was just like this other universe. It was like falling into a black hole, into another beautiful universe, especially where, I grew up, it was boring. I was bored. And so he ended up getting a good guitar, a good acoustic. And he gave me his acoustic, which I still have. And it was called a Melody Plus. It's on my website. I'm not here to promote my website, but it's up there. And you guys, I don't know if you had this ever in Argentina, but you'd go to a gas station or you'd buy something and they'd give you stamps and you'd put them in a book. And once you accrued enough of these books of stamps, you could go buy a toaster or like a blender. Oof. Or a guitar, and they were called green stamps. This is like 1971 in the US. So you guys probably had a version, but you're all young dudes, So, and I got that guitar and I was afraid to touch it. And I wrote a little song with my sister on it. But it was all open strings. And I ended up finding out who the guy across the street, his name was Austin Slater. I said, who's your guitar teacher? And his guitar teacher was this woman named Bunny Gregoire. And I took the bus downtown to South San Francisco, and she taught upstairs at this music store called Bronstein's Music. And I went up there and I was really afraid. And I brought my little Melody Plus guitar. And I had seen movies where piano teachers were really mean and they'd like hit the kids and say, you can't learn. And I was really afraid that she'd tell me I couldn't learn. And the first part of the lesson, I couldn't hold the guitar. And so finally, she made me hold it classical style, like it was sliding all over. And I was like, oh my God, she's going to kick me out. But she was a beatnik. Do you guys know what that is? Like before hippies, there were beatniks. And I'll never forget, I asked how old she was, and she was 60. And I thought that was like 175. Like, I was like, wow, she's so old. But she spoke beatnik, and she'd be like, well, when cats are grooving, and, like she spoke beatnik and she wore a little beret. And I remember thinking, this is the most interesting person I have ever met in my life. And I continued to study with her. And I guess that leads to this moment right now. Because here I am, because of guitar, meeting some of the most interesting people I've ever met, except Rafa. I love Rafa. And Lumiere guitars. And if I didn't play guitar, like I wouldn't meet like all kinds of people and visit all kinds of places. And it was the beginning of like a 5-decade journey of the guitar leads and I follow it. and it leads me to beauty and culture and people that are the same.
Yes, the music is universal language, is magic. How do you define your style on the guitar?
Well, I don't. And I get asked it all the time. And usually, like, I have my guitar case and I get into an Uber or a cab, right? This happens to you. And the guy wants to talk about music and you're tired or want to check out Instagram or something. And the guy will go, what kind of music do you play? And I'll go, guitar music. And if the guy keeps pushing and he's nice, I'll say, Jeff Beck. And he might know who that is. And if he's annoying me, then I'll go, Bill Frisell. And the guy never knows who Bill, I mean, it's a civilian guy usually, but I don't know. I play instrumental guitar music. I think it's song oriented.
Yes.
Probably one of my favorite guitar records is Jeff Beck Below by Below, which I don't model myself after because I think my sound is a little more druggy, for lack of a better word, or psychedelic or something. But I think that's a good example of like, da ba da 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 ba da da. You know, it isn't, it's melodic music. And I'd say like I'm still very influenced by the Beatles and that kind of songwriting. And in a lot of ways, excuse me for this nicotine loss.
No, it's okay.
I'm very song oriented. And many songs I've written the song and think, oh, this song is good. But God, I really don't want to solo over it. You know, where some songs I hear by guitarists, and I'm not putting anybody down, but it sounds like it was written to solo over. And then, you know, I mean, in my journey, I like country music of the 60s. Then I found Jimmy Bryant and Speedy West. And again, I think they write really good songs. Like the song is number one to me.
Okay.
I mean, I really like Alan Holdsworth, but I really like Alan Holdsworth with Tony Williams' New Lifetime. When he progressed in his own music, it was harder for me to understand and hang my hat on it. So getting back to me, and I'm no Alan Holdsworth, I wish I was, but it's song-oriented guitar instrumental music.
Do you have idols?
Oh, yeah. Django Reinhardt, Roy Buchanan, Alan Holdsworth, I think. One of my main guys is John McLaughlin.
Oof.
I think John McLaughlin's career is an amazing career, and he's an amazing life. I mean, I suspect John McLaughlin could probably speak fluent Spanish and maybe, 3 or 4 other languages. Mm-hmm. He was into meditation. Yes. He's traveled the world. He invented the Mahavishnu Orchestra.
For example.
Right. He invented Shakti.
Yes.
He played with Miles Davis.
Yes.
Tribute to Jack Johnson, On the Corner, Bitches Brew. Mm-hmm. Then Shakti.
Mahavishnu Orchestra.
Pardon?
Mahavishnu Orchestra.
Mahavishnu. I saw the Mahavishnu Orchestra, and it really changed my life, really. I think I was still in high school, and I saw the Visions of the Emerald Beyond Band. Excuse me. Yeah. And they opened for Jeff Beck, who I've seen quite a few times. And it changed my life. But I think John McLaughlin is a stunning human life. So I've always wanted to meet him. Then there's Django Reinhardt. And there's so many guys I really love. I really like Wes Montgomery, Johnny Smith. Yeah. I really like a record called Howard Roberts is a Dirty Guitar Player. And a lot of guys aren't into him. It's like you mentioned Grant Green and everybody goes, yeah, Grant Green. But nobody knows Howard Roberts anymore. And I'm telling you, man, that is a great record. He made some other records and they're not quite up to the par of that record, but Howard Roberts is a dirty guitar player. And Bunny Gregoire, my first guitar teacher, turned me on to that record. Roy Buchanan, for sure. And when you talk about idols, I mentioned John McLaughlin. It's like after you play, it's like Hendrix. Maybe not even Hendrix, but the older you get, the younger they are. When I was in high school, I didn't think, Jimi Hendrix is 27. That's incredibly young. Now, I think this is a baby. How's he doing this? And Band of Gypsies, I really love. And Electric Ladyland, which I got before I played guitar. Again, I remember loving Come On and Voodoo Child, the long version.
Do you like Rory Gallagher?
not a huge fan, and I don't mean to diss him, but not terrifically. I know he did many things with the volume knob and expressed himself on long blues, but I mean, I'd choose Buchanan's first 2 records as like the final word. Like the first record's called Roy Buchanan. It's on Polydor, and he does a tune called Pete's Blues on that. And to this day, I think it's incredible. He goes Middle Eastern. He does everything. And his second record's really great too. But I'd say the first record. And I'd say that's the bar that, Mick Taylor doesn't meet. I also really liked Eric Clapton back then. And I usually don't bring him up because it's not hip anymore. And it's also misunderstood because he's up there playing Layla for the 700th time. And, you're like, I don't know, it sounds like Steven Seagal. You know what I mean? Like, it's that much better, and that's unfortunate because in 1972, like, he was like Michael Jordan to me. Like, he was better than everybody. I got the Blues Breakers album, the Beano record, Cream. Yes. And he was kind of swinging. And for a kid, like an Italian-American kid living in South San Francisco, it wasn't like I could go on the internet and find Bill Jennings with Bill Doggett or Charlie Christian or whoever. It was like Led Montrose, Eric Clapton, Yes, like it was like 12 things. And Eric Clapton, I mean, I remember Hideaway, really studying that, and Spoonful Live. So those are I kind of over-answered, but if I had to say one guy, I'd say John McLaughlin. But Roy Buchanan really shaped my sound and my direction. I got on the young guy thing because in some ways, I don't want to play Green Onions the rest of my life, now. I mean, I want to play Round Midnight by Thelonious Monk, but Roy didn't really get a chance to do that.
Okay.
I did.
The Telemaster, Roy Buchanan. Do you prefer to Roy Buchanan or Danny Gatton?
Roy Buchanan. I think Danny Gatton, that's an interesting question. Danny Gatton was probably the greatest telly player in the history of mankind. Okay? Like, he was like an encyclopedia. He total virtuoso, like consummate, brilliant, ingenious taste. Like, he'd find something that was so good and then absorb it. There's a YouTube clip of him playing in some dump with a dartboard behind him. And he does this blues in C that has a guitar break, and it's like 7 minutes long. And each break, he does something completely different and jaw-dropping. And so pound for pound, Danny Gatton's like better than all of us put together. But I don't put on Danny Gatton records.
Okay.
I like Unfinished Business. The one 84-1 Elvira Street or whatever. Like, I don't love his records as much as I love Roy Buchanan's first record or Jeff Beck's Blow by Blow. And I wish I didn't have to say that. But I think Roy, I read in an interview once that Roy said he was trying to make his guitar say, "Help me." And I hear that, man, and when I heard it now and when I heard it then, I needed help too. We all need help, some days. And Danny's playing sometimes sounds ambitious to me.
Yes. So expressive.
It's really expressive, but what does it say?
Yes.
Like Danny Gatton, like, and dude, I don't want to be on video dissing like the greatest telecaster player in the history of mankind, but it feels like he's trying to be the greatest guitarist of all history. And sometimes I think Roy's playing just as sad.
Yeah. Yes, of course.
Excuse me, I'm going to get him.
Okay. How was your experience playing with the Little Willies with Norah Jones?
Oh, it was great. I met Norah before she was famous, and I played with her bassist and boyfriend, Lee Alexander, in San Francisco when I lived in San Francisco. And we used to do this gig, and it was called The Infusion. And it was during the .com era. So San Francisco was really wealthy with wealthy people. And we played this bar that all like rich young people went to. And it was the hardest load in of any place I've ever played. We had to go up this windy staircase that was like this big, like an amp sideways almost didn't fit. And we'd have to get Lee's upright bass. Oh, and we played like in the corner of this, like in the ceiling, you know. And we'd have to get Lee's bass and pull it up and then put it on the stage. It just didn't fit in the stairway. And me and him did that gig, and he never complained. And I always really admired him for it. You know, he'd get his bass up there and he'd play. Then he says, hey, I'm going to move to New York. I'm like, okay. I email him like 5 months later, and I'm like, hey, how's it going? He's like, yeah, I met this woman named Norah. And I'm like, wow, that's a cool name. And he goes, we're going to be in San Francisco. She's a singer. Book us a gig. We like country music. You know, we could just do country. I go, okay. So they came out, and I booked a gig. It was Bobby Black on pedal steel guitar. I had two different drummers, but one of the gigs I used Andrew Borger, who ended up playing in her band. and Chris Key, who played in my band, the 10 Gallon Cats, on bass. And we did these gigs as Jim Campilongo with Norah Jones. And we did one gig, and I had a string section. And it was, and I don't know if you guys know Bobby Black. He plays pedal steel guitar, and he's in the Steel Guitar Hall of Fame. He's phenomenal, okay? He played with, I can't think of their names, but famous bands. He played with Barbara Mandrell, Dolly Parton, did many sessions, like just a world class. And he was in the band, and I had a string section. And I was trying to get, they had the pick of the night in the local newspaper. And I was like, look, this is really great. Make it a pick of the night. I have this singer who's unknown at the time, Norah Jones, a string section, Bobby Black. I mean, it was some of the best music I've ever played. And I remember that morning I ran out and got the newspaper, and I looked, and they had performance art in cardboard boxes instead. And I remember thinking, I'm moving. And it was one of the reasons I moved. Yeah. Anyway, so we did gigs like that. And then I went to New York in 2001, and I was supposed to sub for Adam Levy, her guitarist. And I had subbed for him one time. And man, it was hard. And I remember I got the CDR of her upcoming record, and over the phone, and I never do this, over the phone I played Don't Know Why for a friend of mine in Boston, a guy named Bill Finnegan. He made the Klon Centaur. And I go, I think this song is a hit. And I played it over the phone. He goes, yeah, I don't like it. And I was like, okay. But I had to learn that. And anyway, we had a rehearsal scheduled, but it was September 11th, 2001. So I got up. I had seen Les Paul the night before live, was great. And I got up and I see all this smoke, and I call her and I'm like, some building's burning. I think we should cancel rehearsal. So I never did sub for Adam Levy. The gig was like September 12th or something. But I just wanted to get out of New York, and I still lived in San Francisco. And it was crazy. It was September 11th, you're afraid. I was one of the first people to fly in the world, after September 11th, and everyone was on the plane, it was different, unfortunately, not for the best sometimes. But anyway, I flew back to San Francisco, and I got there and I thought, I just want to go back. And 6 months later, I'm living in New York, and a room at Nora's and Lee's opened up. I'm really over answering this. And they're like, hey, we got a room. We're going to go out on tour. We're putting out a new record. And I go, okay, because I was sleeping on a couch. And at this time, I'm no spring chicken. Do you guys do you know that idiom here?
No.
I wasn't young.
Okay.
I was no spring chicken. Yeah. I think I'm 42 years old. I moved from San Francisco. I'm sleeping on a couch. And they go, hey, we got a room opening up. I go, okay. So I go over there, and they go, we're going on tour tomorrow. And I go, okay. And Lee, the bassist, her boyfriend, looks at me and goes, don't go to the left. And I go, okay, in the neighborhood. And I was so scared of the left, And they went on tour, and 5 months later, I'm sitting in their apartment, and I see her getting 5 Grammys. It was amazing. Yes. I've never had a front row seat for that. There were news fans parked all up and down the street of the apartment I was living at. They were all begging to go in the apartment. The apartment was on the cover of the New York Post. And after that, we started playing as the Little Willies. and we got Richard Julian in the band. And it was like a New York version of what I had in San Francisco, less Bobby Black. And it was great. Norah is one of the most talented people I've worked with, and I've worked with some pretty talented people. I'm lucky. I work with Mariano and Sergio here. Like, I'm always playing with people who are better than me, always. But I learned a lot from her. And in some ways it was hard because she'd go, okay, let's do this song. And she wants to get everything quick. And now I'm that way too, you know. But she'd go, okay, let's do it in G. And it would be like, ding, ding, ding. And I'd be like working on an intro. And then she'd go, let's do it again. Can we try A flat? And I'd be like, yeah, you know. And I'd want to go, no, please, let's keep it in G. And we do it in A flat, and I kind of didn't, you know, I'd be like kind of working something out. Then she'd go, let's try it in C. And I'd go, yeah, you know, because I'm a sideman, you got to be cool. I'd be like, can't we play it in G like 14 times? And that's it. We do it in C. And then she'd be like, okay, let's go to the next song. And some of the songs on the first record I did know. But mainly the second record was really done like that. And I realized what a jazz mentality she had. Like, she wanted stuff to be real. And I learned that from her. Music comes really easy to her, I think, much easier than me. And the other thing was how easy it is. Like, I was talking about that gig at Infusion where the load-in was really hard. It's like, man, it's like Queen for a day. Like, you're in this band, everything's packed, like it's 200 people, it's packed. And I don't know if you guys have experienced this. You just have to show up and stand on the stage and everyone's, yay! Like, I mean, I see bands like U2 and the Rolling Stones and all those guys. I'm like, you guys have it so easy. It's not like, oh yeah, I'm not complaining, but oh, I got to play Mar de Plata and half the audience won't know anything about me. Maybe they'll see this or something. It was so easy and fun and cush, if that's it. You're so taken care of.
Okay.
And the band was great. We were friends. I was doing it before she was famous, and then she became famous.
You played with J.J. Cale too. Tell me more about the experience.
Well, that's kind of like a Wikipedia thing. I did, but, you know,
Okay.
I opened for J.J. Cale 3 times in San Francisco in a band called the Steve Yerke Band, and it was amazing. None of that, his band or him, tried to make anything happen. And I saw him three nights, And 2 of the nights they were horrible. I mean, it was just like nothing is going on. And he was playing like, nair, nair,
Okay.
nair, I mean, it was just like, what? And then one of the nights, it was like incredible. So fast forward a couple of years, and some guy at Bimbo's in San Francisco goes, hey, you want to open for J.J. Cale? And this is in my own band. I got like Jim Campilongo in the 10-Gallon Cats. I'm like young. I'm trying to be like the greatest guitarist on earth, and I'm like, hell yes. And they go, yeah, you can't play electric though. And I go, really? They go, yeah, we don't want to blow JJ away, and I go, okay. So I played acoustic and I got this little thing together and I did some Chet Atkins or whatever. It was good. Then JJ Cale came on and he asked me to sit in with him and on electric. And it was really fun. I held back because music's like water. It takes the shape of its container. And he's up there, going, near, near, near. You aren't going to go, you know what I mean, or whatever. Yeah. So, but it was really fun.
Do you like the Tulsa sound? The Tulsa style of music?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not like, you sound like you might know more about JJ than me. I liked it. It was a little low key for me.
Okay.
I mean, I'm listening to John McLaughlin, Roy Buchanan, not the Grateful Dead. Like, I like music that says like, hey, I'm here.
Okay.
I'm alive, and so it was a little sleepy for me, but I really
it's so quiet.
It. It's quiet, but I really learned a lot, and I really liked him. But I can't say I ran home and listened to all my J.J. Cale records.
Okay. How you can define this moment in your career?
Gosh, that's a really good question. Come on, man. What kind of picks do I use? Well, it's a continuation of my first guitar lesson. I really love Buenos Aires. I would have never come here if it wasn't for Rafa and Lumiere Guitars. And I came here kind of, sure, I'll come. I didn't know exactly where it was, no offense, but I was like, Buenos Aires, where is that exactly? And I came here and I really liked it, in part because of Rafa and Lumiere Guitars.
Yes. This is your Lumiere Telecaster.
Sí.
Tell me about this, about this guitar.
Well, Rafa and I talk quite a bit. Like even when I'm in Estados Unidos, like we're on WhatsApp yakking away. And I've had 2 other signature guitars. One was a Fender signature made by Custom Shop. And then I made one with a guy named Han Guitars, Chiho Han. And that was an affordable Telecaster. Very nice though. So I wanted to do something a little different. And I really loved Duosonics. I think at the time, Duosonics were the last reasonably priced vintage guitar. So I bought a couple. And I'm not like this. Like I have maybe 12 guitars, but I bought 2 of them. And just would like stare at them, like they're on like this, like, and so I told Rafa, I said, if we make a telly, I'd love it to be desert sand with a gold anodized pickguard.
Yes, beautiful color.
It is. He did a really terrific job. Him and Gabriel, right? It's a 2-man operation, and they're Buenos Aires pickups.
Yes.
Made here. Everything's made here. I mean, the wood's shipped from the U.S., right, Rafa?
It came here at the end of the 18th century, 19th century, but it's from United States. Yeah.
Yeah, it's 100-year-old wood.
Yes.
But Rafa, I was like, we ought to maybe we should do something with the neck pickup.
Yeah, the mini humbucker.
Yeah, and Rafa said, it'll be a mini humbucker from a Thunderbird. And I was like, yeah, I've never really played one of those, but okay. And it was his idea. And it makes the guitar, I really like it. It makes the guitar unique. Then we made a Jim Campilongo model. But I have to say, I love all the Lumiere guitars. You've seen them, right? They're all really nice.
Yes.
I mean, sure, that one I have my name on it, but they're all really nice. And I'm proud that they're made here because I really love Buenos Aires. And I don't throw the L word around. Love. I don't throw that word around. And I love it here. Okay. This is my 4th time. And going back, sorry to over-answer, when I said I was in San Francisco during 9/11 and then I came back to San Francisco and all I thought about was going back, every time I leave here and go back home, all I think about is coming back. So anyway.
Who artists do you like from here?
Well, I really like the people. One thing, I really like Rafa, first off. And believe it or not. And I bust his balls. I don't know why. And so I really liked Rafa. And I missed Rafa. But then the second time I came, he said, hey, you should do a couple gigs. And I know these guys referred to Andres Calamaro.
Andres Calamaro?
Yeah, Andres Calamaro suggested Sergio Verdinelli and Mariano Artero. Mm-hmm. So we got some gig at like at Bebop Club.
Okay.
And it was a big place. And I'm like, and it was like 2 days after I got here. So I'm like, okay, I won't be jet lagged or whatever. So I'm emailing these guys like, hi, my name's Jim. We're playing at Bebop Club. I'm friends with Rafa. And I go, here's a set list and here's the MP3s of my tunes. If you could learn them. And charts, but my charts are like G, D7, C. I don't write like great charts. They're good charts if you're, not like a housewife in Utah, But they're not like great. Some guys like them, some guys don't. Anyway, I send it to them, and I email them, and I'm like, hey, can we rehearse like this day? And they're like, yeah, you should come over for dinner. And both guys were way more interested in me coming over for dinner to their houses than rehearsing. And at first I was like, yeah, dinner sounds good, but we got this gig at Bebop. And I did go over their house. I remember Sergio had, what is it, dulce de leche in the plastic thing, and I took a spoonful. I was like, oh my God. And the candy here was really good. And I met Mariano, and I learned from that. I'm like, why am I so worried about rehearsing? We just have to connect as human beings.
Do you like the mate?
Yeah, I'm still a coffee guy. Okay. But I like mate. I don't have a kit yet.
Okay, yeah.
Sergio always has this little kit.
Yes.
Yeah. I like mate. Are you a mate drinker?
Yes. Sometimes.
I like media luna.
Yeah, media luna is good.
Yeah.
Similar to croissant.
Similar, but I don't say croissant.
More sweet, more
I mean, there's media luna dulce. Yeah, really good. But I like both are good. Yeah. But the plain media luna I really like. And all the food here is great. I mean, the carne, come on. Right? It's like the best meat I've ever had. Yeah. And it reminds me of when I was little. in the U.S. when food had flavor. Because I don't know what's happened. Sorry for bumping the mic. I don't know what's happened, but food has lost its flavor in the United States, but the food is very flavorful here. I love the candy. I know it's a chain, but Havana has these like blue little cakes, man. They're really good.
Alfajor.
Yeah, those are really good. And I like all the cakes. I have like 4 or 5 in my apartment. So the food's great. I actually love the architecture. I love walking around.
So European architectonics.
It is. It's European with the balconies. You can almost see Mussolini going like this, on some of them. You know what I mean? Like there are these classic balconies.
Very antique.
And it's very attractive. There's the 70s high rises, which I like. I'm in one now.
Do you like the tango, for example?
I don't know much about that. I met a tango dancer this morning picking up my laundry, but I'd be lying. I probably have faked it, but I've never studied it.
Okay.
And it's not in my DNA.
Okay.
Like rock is and rock and roll. Like I heard Johnny B. Good when I was in the crib, So tango, salsa. I mean, I know this isn't Argentinian, but I went through like a Hector Lavoe, Willie Colon stage that I really love those guys.
But do you like Astor Piazzolla, no?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's more than tango. It's more sophisticated, maybe. It's more near to classical music, Astor Piazzolla. Why choose the telecaster, this model?
Well, a number of reasons. One was I was playing through my guitar history. I was playing like this really crappy Teisco that I borrowed from some guy. He was kind enough to give it to me for like 6 months. And then I got a 54 Les Paul with single coils. Back in the day, they were like $400.
With P90s.
P90s. Okay. And it sounded like a Tele. And I made it sound like a Tele. Yes. Then I got a Strat and I made it sound like a Tele. And finally I'm like, I'm just going to get a Tele. And I really like that, the sounds. I think they're very basic. I got a little burned out on out of phase Stratocaster sound. The Les Paul's great, but I don't like sitting down with it. It's more of a strap guitar. Yes. The Tele's like perfect.
Yes.
And I love how voice-like it is. I think it's an underrated jazz guitar. I've said this before, but Louis Armstrong doesn't sound like an ES-175. He sounds like a Tele. Yeah. It's sassy, so, and I love how basic they are. Also, I like the deep dish after the nut because I employ that. I have a top loader and I like that too because it's just easier to change strings. And it's a little more elastic. I don't know. It's like, why do you like Coca-Cola?
Yes.
It's like they got it right. in like 1910. It's still a great drink. I don't drink it every day, but it's like Leo Fender got it right. Like the headstock, it's beautiful, man.
Yes. Yes, of course.
It's like a cat. You know, you look at a cat and you're just like...
Definitive.
It's perfect. Like it's whiskers and it has a smile, kind of. You just stare at the cat and you're charmed. And that's a telecaster to me.
Yes, of course. Do you think there is any connection between art and spirituality?
What's the word before spirituality?
It is not religious. It's more mystic way.
For sure.
Inbound.
Well, one of the things, I don't know, spirituality it's a good question, but how do you define that? Like, how do we define it? Like, everyone here is going to have a different feeling about what spirituality is. But other than meeting people and playing music with people, which feels spiritual, one thing that I think about a lot is time. Like, I'm here for 2 months, but I'll come back in San Francisco and it'll be like a memory. It's like that question, would you take a vacation but not be able to remember it? Like, if you can't remember the experience, then why would you do it? Okay. So that's an aspect of time. Another aspect of time is sometimes I'm playing and I'll be like, da, 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 and the pause between phrases, I thought so many things. And it felt like a minute, like 60 seconds. But it was really a fraction, like a second. And I fought the law, and the law won by the Johnny Fuller 5, is that it? Is 2 minutes long. Like, wow, that's only 2 minutes? Like commercials during American football are longer than 2 minutes. And I'm like daydreaming. But so time and music fascinate me. Like how long a song feels, how long a moment feels, how long a trip to Buenos Aires feels, but in the context of music. So I think it's really mystical. And just the fact we're listening to like a note that's a vibration that like, and why do we like da 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 da? Like, why do we like that? I mean, do they like that in Baghdad? Maybe not. Like, so is it a cultural thing? But there seems to be an inbred feeling of the pentatonic scale. Like if you go to like cultures that haven't experienced other cultures, it's like their melodies are pentatonic. I think there's something really mystical about music. And I think it's getting stamped on, because like everywhere we go now, we hear like, some like music that's barely audible. And it's like, God, turn it off. Like I have to force myself to put on music sometimes when I get home because I'm hearing music all day. But I definitely think that. So yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And what do you think about the death?
Death?
Yes. Do you fear it?
I mean, what kind of interview is this? No, I like this interview. Okay. Diodario. No. I think about death a lot more than I used to because I'm older. And okay, so I'm 66. So I remember when I was in high school, I read The Straight Life by Art Pepper. It's a really harsh book. And a year later or so, I read in the paper he died. And he was like, I think he was 53. And I was like, well, you know, he lived long enough. You know, he's 53 for crying out loud. And now I'd think, oh, wow, he was young. So I'm much closer to death than I am to birth. So I think about it, but I think about it pragmatically. Like, I take comfort in not knowing what's going to happen after I die. Like, you know, and I'm not putting down Catholicism or anything. I take comfort in, I don't know, maybe I'll be worms, maybe I'll fly through the sky and there'll be like Jimi Hendrix feedback going on, or, you know, I'll get reincarnated. You know, I don't believe that, but maybe, who knows? I don't know. But I do think about, okay, so if I die, who gets my house? Who gets my records? Who gets my guitars? I think about that. Like, just the organization of my death. I mean, man, we're all going to die. And billions have died before us. Billions. You know, so it's no big deal, I guess. You know, I guess I'll try and make the most of it. But, you know, I've watched like the dumbest movie. Like, I've seen Predator and Alien like 12 times each. Like, I don't think I'll regret that when I die. Like, I'll be like, oh man, maybe I should have watched Alien like just 5 times. You know, I've had a good life. And if I dropped dead today, I'd be like, man, I was the luckiest guy in the world. The thing I do think about is how. Like, I do not want to have to go into the medical system. And there is no real great way to exit this earth. I mean, unless like a boulder falls on your head and you die instantly, which I don't really want to happen, but it's better than having to go get dialysis once a week and wait in the waiting room, or, you know, there's so many horrible ways. Like, there's no great way. And that, I do think about that. I think, gosh, you know, it's like this Mount Everest that I try to not think about. But it's more, like I said, organizing it, and then like, how does it happen? What do you think, Rafa? He's
I don't know. Seriously, I think that it's I think it's as important as your whole lived life, because it's like the exit. You know, it's like, I wish I could have time to think what's happening and to say, it's okay, I'm done, it's okay, let's go. But that's very romantic, no? Like,
yeah, it'd be a good way to go. I mean, when, you know, I mentioned 9/11 and the tragedy, part of the tragedy is people said, yeah, I'll see you at 5. Don't forget to pick up the, you know, salami. Bye. And they died.
there is a tale from Ray Bradbury in The Illustrated Man, with an asteroid hits a spaceship, and all the astronauts are like fired in different directions, and it's the conversations they have, all knowing that they are going to die in 5 minutes, in an hour, or in a day, depending the oxygen they have in their suits. And it's amazing. It's great. A great tale.
I've never read the book. I've just seen the movie with Rod Steiger. Yeah, it's not that great a movie, but I haven't. It makes me want to read it. I thought Rafa would have an interesting thing to say.
Yes.
I know this
Yes.
interview is about,
Yeah.
you know, guitar and death.
Yeah.
Dude, I really appreciate it. But I hope what I said made some kind of sense.
If you could revive someone, who would it be?
Revive?
Yeah.
Like my grandfather or Muhammad Ali.
Okay.
You know, I mean, there's many. One of the heartaches about death, I think, is the people I really loved. I think, gosh, I wish I could see him one more time. Just one more time. Frankie C. in New York is one of these people. Laney, a friend in New York, is one of those people. I'd like to meet my grandfather again. He died when I was like 14, and I'd really like to meet him again. He was such a sweet man, and I just knew him when I was like a little guy. He was like my best friend. I remember we'd meet on Sundays, and we'd have breakfast together, and then we'd go to church, okay? And I remember, I don't know how old I was, 8 years old, and I was really into drag racing, like big engine and Don Garlits and Don Prudhomme. And I remember telling him about drag racing, and I go, yeah, they go 200 miles an hour, and, their engines could explode. This is when the engines were in the front. And he goes, wow. And I go, and the steering wheels, they don't work. They don't work. They don't steer. They just go in a straight line, which is nonsense. And he went, oh, really? He just let me be a little boy.
Okay.
How nice. His name was Henry. Yeah.
Are you happy?
No. I mean, not no, but it's like gigging. Like I remember at one time I was given a guitar lesson, and some guy calls me up and he's like, hey, you want to go to Seattle and record? And I'm like, I hold the phone and I go, hey, have you ever heard of this guy Stone Gossard? And he's in Pearl Jam. And the guy's like, yeah. And I'm like, God, it sounds like a superhero. I'd never heard of him. So I go, okay. So I flew up and I recorded with Michael Shreve of Santana. My cousin was on bass, who was a great bassist named Paul Pinklin. Some other guys, this famous producer, I forget his name, and we recorded all day. And the next day I had to fly back because I had a country gig in Colma, and Colma's all cemeteries. You could Google it. It's the largest population of dead people in the world. And it was this little bar in Colma, and I had to get there. So I had recorded the day before in Seattle with the biggest rock band at the time, and with Michael Shreve on drums, who's a hero, more or less. And at this gig in Colma, I remember the singer started yelling at me on stage because my sound wasn't distorted enough on Achy Breaky Heart. Yeah, because I was just in the amp and I didn't use a distortion unit. And I remember thinking, as he's yelling at me, thinking, well, the music thing really has its ups and downs. And I try to shoot for the middle. If somebody says, you're the greatest thing ever, I go, thank you, because the next night some guy might be yelling at me because I'm not playing Achy Breaky Heart correctly. So I tell that long story because it's kind of funny, but that's life. It's ups and downs. And when we talk about death, the moral of most stories is enjoy the moment. But boy, is that hard.
Yes, of course.
I'm enjoying this moment, though.
Yes. Really. Thanks. At the end of my interviews, I give an album from my collection. In this case, I picked this one for you. This is Manal. Is the first. Was the first blues band of Argentina, from Argentina. This was the first album of Manal, by Manal.
Wow, I've never heard of them, and thank
No.
you. I will treasure this gift. Thank you so much.
This is 1970.
Uh-huh.
Is so important for the rock and roll, Argentinian rock and roll history.
Is there liner? Yeah, there's some. Here it is. I was looking for this, I think. There's like a booklet in here. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so I could, because this, it's a great cover. I like it.
Okay.
What year did you say?
1970.
Good year.
Yes. And you choose this one.
Thank you.
The Love Devotion.
Yeah, Love
from
Devotion.
Carlos Santana and Tom Laughlin.
Yeah, I love this record. A Love Supreme is, if you want to call it a guitar duel,
Yes.
it's the greatest guitar duel ever.
Yes.
And I really love John McLaughlin on this record, and Santana's growing. It's during his period after Caravanserai where he did like Welcome, Promise of the Fisherman, and he does Naima, and he plays gut string melody, and it's quite nice. But I think the real showstopper is A Love Supreme. And John McLaughlin on this is like otherworldly, especially on that track. And you almost feel the floor of the studio vibrating by how loud he is. It just sounds so loud. And he was into that. He was into volume. I've always wanted to meet him, and I know people who have. And one of the people said that he's very hard of hearing now. And I think he viewed volume as an aspect of music. And when I saw the Mahavishnu Orchestra, man, it was like loud. It wasn't the loudest thing I've ever heard. The loudest thing I ever heard was Ted Nugent. It was awful. But he played through 6 super twins. But it was loud, and I love this record. If you haven't heard it, and you obviously have.
Do you have this album?
I have this record, and it's a gatefold.
Okay.
Yeah. And on the back is like a creepy picture of Shrai Chimnoy with his arms around these guys. It looks creepy to me, but, right? But it's still a great record. And it has writings, I think, of him about love, devotion, and surrender, and it's quite beautiful.
Yeah. This is Argentinian edition, the antique, this old vinyl, and I give you.
Well, thank you so much. I will treasure this. I really will. I just listened
for your collection.
I just listened to this last week. I have it on MP3 in my computer, and a friend of mine, Joe Williamson, a singer originally from New York City, visited me, and she was so kind to go, what did you listen to? And I was like, really? And I played her this, and I was like, it's so fantastic, and thank you so much.
It's a perfect album. Thank you for everything, Jim. I enjoyed this talk.
I did too. Thank you. And your English is wonderful. Maybe one of these visits we can speak in Spanish. I hope so. Don't hold your breath. But anyway, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Jim.